Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to my channel, The Daily DIYer. I am taking you into the thrift store with me today to show you some amazing thrift flips. The most expensive item that I purchased during this shopping trip was only $3, so some really great bargains that I found. First up are these shutters. I ended up purchasing 3 of them. They were only $2 a piece. I'm only going to be flipping one of these shutters in today's video, so make sure to subscribe so you can come back and see what I do with the other 2. That is very, very soon to come. But let's transform this first shutter. I had this old piece of pallet wood in my woodworking shop for a super long time, and it ended up being the perfect length and width for what I was needing, and I love incorporating old things and repurposing just like all these thrift store finds into new again. So save that old wood and you can use it at some point, just like I kind of held on to this to use and finally found a purpose for it. So once I had it all sanded down, I want to get some of the grime, some of the splinters off. I am going to be using these dollar store plant hooks. So these were only $1 a piece. I'm gonna be putting these on top of the on the front of the shutters and then putting my wood on top of them to make that shelf. But they only had holes in one side, and I needed to add holes to the other side as well. So I used a 2x4 to kind of give me some grip as I drilled into this metal. Make sure you're using a metal drill bit when you're doing this. It takes a little bit of time and patience, but you will eventually get through this thicker metal. I ended up just doing one hole on each one of these hooks. All right, so now it is time to put all these pieces together. You'll kind of see how this all comes together with the hooks and that pallet wood that we prepped earlier. I'm using some 3/4 inch wood screws that are gonna go into the front of the shutter and then also through the top of those hooks and straight into the bottom of the pallet wood. You'll also see me using a little bit of hot glue. That's just basically tacking it in place until I can get those screws in. Definitely not a long-term permanent adhesive for this, so I would use a wood glue or a more heavy-duty super glue for this, but in the moment, since I only had one set of hands, it came in handy. Now, I also wanted to add some hooks onto the front of this piece, so I measured out and I'm using some cup hooks just to screw those right into the front of the bottom of my shutter so that I can use it to hang decor or other things like coffee mugs. You can even use it in a kitchen and hang things like your pots and pans or utensils from. So I'd love to hear your ideas down in the comments below too, how you would incorporate this piece into your home. I think it would be so cute in an entryway too. This piece was about 32 inches long, so a pretty good sized piece that is definitely a substantial piece you could keep around for years to come. And I knew the second I saw this wooden sign exactly what I was gonna do to it. And I knew exactly what I was gonna need to do to make it look like a table. So that is what we're gonna work on. It had this monogram in the center and it had a lot of adhesive around it. So I had a thought that it was probably secondary and somebody had added it and that it was gonna be pretty easy to get off there. So I took my heat gun to it and my putty knife to pry that letter off the top, and sure enough, it had a sticker on the back of it, so I knew it was just something that they had added for the previous owner, but we're not going to need that for this table. So I just popped that right off of there, and then I had a lot of adhesive left behind that I kind of had to scrape off and melt off and get off of there because we definitely don't want to see that on our finished piece. And now for the legs, I decided to use some 2x2s. You can get these at the hardware store for under $5 each. The great thing is they will even cut these down for you at the hardware store if you do not have the tools to do it. But you could even use a handsaw and miter box for this if you don't have a miter saw, which is what I'm gonna be using to cut mine down with. And I decided I wanted my table to be 20 inches tall. So I subtracted the thickness of my sign and then cut my legs down to 18.5 inches long. You'll also want to sand down your legs before you go ahead and start building them, as they're made out of pine, which is a soft wood, and they kind of come pretty nicked up. This isn't a premium wood, it's just a more affordable option. So I used 80 grit sandpaper, and once all of my legs were sanded down, I decided to try my hand at adding pocket holes into the ends of these. And in a perfect world, this definitely would have worked if I was drilling into solid wood, which my sign was not. It's actually just a hollow sign. So you'll see here, this is a Craig jig, and it creates pocket holes into your wood pieces. It's one of the most strong connections you can make whenever you are building things, and I've used these for a long time. It just didn't quite work out with this project, and so I tried my hand at it, and sometimes you just kind of have to work around what doesn't work. So I did go ahead and screw these legs down with some wood glue down into the bottom of the sign, but then it was pretty wobbly, so I got my nail gun out and tried to tack it down that way too. So what I'm doing is just trying to toenail these nails into the legs and then into the bottom of the sign, and it was still super wobbly. So I pulled out some L brackets. They're basically just L-shaped metal pieces with holes in them, and those are what gave me the best strength for these legs. So third time's a charm, we finally got it. These are super easy to install too. I would definitely use some wood glue and probably 2 on each leg if you're gonna go this method alone. So if you don't do the pocket holes and the nails, I would put 2 of these on each leg to make it a little bit more stable. Once I had all of those L brackets attached, I came in and decided to chalk paint the entire thing white. Now these paintbrushes, this is definitely not a sponsor video. These are literally brushes that I love and swear by. If you're gonna do any kind of chalk painting of big projects or big furniture makeovers, I love these paintbrushes. I'll link them down below. They're made for chalk paint, so if you're gonna be chalk painting a lot, they are great brushes, and they come in a set. So they make them for any kind of project, big and small, even if you have a bunch of tiny cracks. This is one of the smaller brushes in the set, which worked really great for all those grooves that were on top of this table. So this was pretty much a very simple concept that took a little bit more time than I expected, but I love the subtle print on the top of this with that etched wood. It's a little bit harder to see in the video, but it is so gorgeous in person. You can see that the inset of the wood that's underneath is sort of a little bit different of a color. It kind of discolored the chalk paint and just turned out so pretty. Next up on the to-do list is this metal tray, which had really good bones. I just didn't like some of the parts of this tray. I didn't like that it looked sloppy and messy, but I love that it looked like metal, and I also wanted to do something special with these handles. So the first thing I did was to take my simple green. This is my product that I use to clean up all of my thrift flip items before I actually start painting or anything. So I probably should have mentioned that before, but definitely clean and disinfect any of your thrifted items before you start working on them. And then I took a flat iron spray paint, which I'll link down below too, and gave my tray 2 coats. All right, so this is looking much better now that it has more of a monochromatic metal look. And I now want to focus on those handles. So I've used jute to cover handles in the past, but I wanted this to contrast a little bit more. So I pulled out some macrame cord from my craft stash and decided to wrap the handles with this. And you'll see that it will coordinate really beautifully with our next step that's coming up. All right, so I just twisted this all the way around and did that on both of the handles. And now I wanted to make this a pretty little shelf decor piece. So I grabbed out 3 Dollar Tree picture frames and took them outside and spray painted them. It took 3 coats of white chalk paint. And here again, we're gonna do a little bit of adjusting. I was not happy with the stark white color of the frames up against my macrame cord. I really wanted them to blend a little bit better. So I pulled out my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster, which has more of a off-white tone to it, which will match that cord so much better. So just used a foam paintbrush this time and gave them 1 coat, was really quick. Chalk paint is great because it dries super fast too. And then all I did was add some of these herb-free printables that are from a blog, which I will link down in the description box below, so you can head over and find those for yourself if you like them too. And I'm adding those to the insides of the frame, and I also peeled the back pieces off of the backer of the frame because we're going to be gluing these right onto the front side of our tray. And I'm going to be using a combination of super glue, which I got from the Dollar Tree, and my hot glue. The super glue is going to make a permanent bond between the frame and the tray, whereas the hot glue just kind of sits there and lets everything dry and cure until the super glue is totally bonded. And this just turned out so chic and so beautiful, and I could not be more happy with this. It's such a beautiful extra little accent piece for my shelves. And this piece I couldn't pass up. It was only $1. It's a little glass box that opens up and it had little feet on it. It was pretty rough looking, but I knew we could do some work to it and bring it back to life and make it a gorgeous piece. I'm kind of obsessed with brass at the moment, and I just had to have this piece, and for $1, why not give it a shot, right? So the inside had a pretty awful adhesive splotch on the bottom, which I wasn't sure if I could get off or not, but what I ended up doing is just using some Goo Gone. I poured it in there and just kind of let it sit for a while, and then took a big razor blade, tried to scratch it out of there. That didn't work so well, so I got a smaller razor blade out, and I just chipped away at it and chipped away at it until finally I got it all clean. So you can see in there I was able to get all of that goop off of there, and I still needed to come in with my simple green and give it a good cleaning, which cleaned up all the glass, and it also polished up that brass really nicely for me. This is kind of a great example of sometimes it just takes a little bit of elbow grease and cleaning, and you have a beautiful piece without actually having to flip it or transition it into something new. We just wanted to give this piece new life and give it purpose again, so it wouldn't go in the trash can. So after I got all of this cleaned up, I wanted to find something really pretty to put inside of it, and I had to find something pretty small. So I had this craft kit from the Target Dollar Spot, had these little teeny terracotta pots inside of it that was the perfect size to fit into this glass box. So I decided to paint it white with my white chalk paint and add some greenery. And as you can see, you can take something old and make it new and beautiful again, even if it only costs $1. If you enjoy thrift flip videos like this one that you saw today, I'll have more popping up on your screen that you can check out next. Please subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I love bringing you budget-friendly DIYs. And I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I will see you in the next video. Happy crafting!